you'll get the thread here, the theme with me, that I don't trust our own minds. And it doesn't mean that I think we're always wrong or we should never trust our minds. I think there's just too many instances, for various reasons that are usually well-intentioned, at least in our minds, we lie to ourselves. And I think that falls into that category, that idea of looking yourself in the mirror. I would imagine most people, if you ask them like, hey, have you done that work? Have you actually looked at yourself in the mirror and figured that out? Have you realized that the things, exactly as you just said, the things you don't trust in that person are probably rooted in you having insecurities about yourself? I would venture to say a lot of people would say like, yeah, I've done a good bit of that. Like I'm pretty good. I think I've done that. I think I know myself really well. And I'm of the believer that like, that is a Herculean task. Unless you said like, you know what, I've tried so hard, but it's almost impossible. Like to me, that's an indication you've probably done it. People that, I think too often we let ourselves off the hook and assume we've done that work. And that becomes the most dangerous of all, because then you're really not checking yourself at all anymore. You just assume like, yeah, I'm pretty good. I know myself well. I've looked myself in the mirror. Now I can move forward boldly and without hesitation because I'm trying to do these positive things. And I think that gets really dangerous. So again, you know, I'll ask, and I can think of examples for myself too, but like, as you think of it for you, Matt, again, in politics where you're being pulled so hard, how would that work been for you? Like, have you found, are you still struggling with it? Is it something where you've learned lessons about how it functions? Do you think it's as hard as I'm saying? Like, what's your take on that work to look the man in the mirror, as you said?
Well, if I didn't struggle with it, I wouldn't be human. I'd be divine. Okay. So
Or you'd be
obvious,
lying to yourself,
or
right?
I'd be
Or you'd
lying
be
to
that other one.
myself.
Yep, yep.
You know, and one of the pieces of imagery that, as you were talking, came to my mind was the Wizard of Oz. And you know, it's hard to look ourselves in the mirror because we don't always live in reality, do we? We live in what we project to other people. And when we look in that mirror, it's not just looking in the mirror at, you know, what we've manufactured, what we've projected to the outside world. It's pulling the curtain back and realizing that that outside world is not reality. Okay, I'm the guy in the back with the controls in my own life, you know, just trying to hang on to those levers and you know, make all the magic happen. Um, and we all fall short. So, you know, I think that's the hardest thing about looking in the mirror, is realizing that our everyday perception of ourselves, because it's what we're projecting outward, is not really reality. And we've only seen a huge increase in this when we start talking about social media and, you know, the lives that we live there. You know, I'm friends on Facebook because I'm of the right age that we had Facebook just as we were going to college. You know, my high school friends that I haven't seen now in 20 years are still Facebook friends with me. I hope they're all doing as well as what they see on Facebook. But if I'm being honest, I'm not doing nearly as well as what people would perceive of me through Facebook or, you know, newspaper or articles that I write. You know, I know how to put my best foot forward. We're all taught how to do that. But that's the dangerous part. That's the part that we have to realize. And again, it brings us back to looking in the mirror and pulling the curtain back like the Wizard of Oz, and knowing that that we're all just trying to get through. And then there's that commonality that we have, that shared human experience that exists. That if in I always think of the wizard, you know, kind of not being able to hold those levers back, and, you know, not being quite tall enough to reach high enough to pull them down. Those are the struggles that we have in everyday life. And if I'm having them behind my curtain, then you're having them, and everyone else is having them. And, you know, I don't want to sound, you know, too fluffy or anything like that. You know, there's this perception. I'm from rural Pennsylvania, you know, white middle class man of a certain age. You know, we should just get through it. We don't talk about problems. But really, that's not going to make any of us any more successful, because we need to realize the unseen cracks that are in everyone's mirrors when they're looking at themselves.
So beautifully said, Matt. I don't say that for hyperbole. I truly believe that's a beautiful sentiment. And I agree with so much of it. Let me ask you, maybe last question, which may seem like an unfair question, but I think in the spirit of what we're talking about, and the humility and the vulnerability that you're showing in that answer, which I greatly appreciate, by the way, I think it's really important to ask, to see what's there and see what to make of it. In the spirit of that, right? Acknowledging, as we all are, the commonality that we all have those cracks, we all have those flaws, we all have those issues. I ask this completely genuinely. What led you to think, I'm going to go into politics though, right? Because, and then the reason I ask that, and the reason why I say it could sound like an unfair question is, you can look at it from one angle and say, if you know you're flawed, if you know you're imperfect, you have these things, as we all do, why would anybody think I should be in a position of authority or making decisions? And I know obviously it's a constituency and you're making decisions based on them, but you understand, as a politician, there is some power and influence that comes with that. It kind of gets to the philosopher king concept, back to like a Plato, Socrates type of thing, of like, anybody that was aware enough to know of their flaws would never say, I should go be in politics and make decisions like this. Now that's one side of it. That's unfair in some ways, right? The other side of it is, if we're all flawed, somebody has to step up and do it, right? And maybe the best person to do it is the one that could admit it, in that same vein. But let me ask that question to you. When you made the decision to go into politics, did you have any hesitation? Was there any sense of like, maybe I shouldn't do this? Maybe there's flaws I haven't worked through enough of yet to be in this position? Or how did you manage that?